Welcome to Heart of Poland, a very special episode with
Krzystof Kosior. I am the great-grandson of Witold Pilecki, the volunteer to Auschwitz.
Krzystof. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
What's the most offensive, irritating, or kind of like low-grade item that you've seen your great-grandfather Witold Pilecki's face on, be it a mug, a T-shirt, a pen? I'm sure there's been a moment where you've looked at his image and thought, no, this is bad taste.
I think it was some kind of briefs, so underpants.
Okay,
But I think this was like a photoshopped image, so just to show that how far will they get, and from the true ones, I don't really know, but there is some stuff which is really irritating. I would say that it goes too far.
The people who are going to be watching this for the next 5, 10, 15 years will probably already know who Witold Pilecki is, so I'm not going to spend too long introducing him. But, you know, am I right in saying that he's essentially Poland's greatest hero, certainly in the sense of the people that we talk about on such a regular basis? His name and his image is used all the time to talk about Poland's experience during World War II.
Well, it's hard to tell, actually. I would say for me, yeah, definitely one of the top 5, maybe. I would say. So it's more recent than some of the older stuff from the Middle Ages or so. So it's quite current, and therefore it's getting more popularity right now. But hard to tell really if it's the hero of the nation.
Am I right in saying that you basically were partly brought up or spent a fair amount of time as an 8 or 9-year-old boy with Witold Pilecki's wife, Maria?
Yes, I did.
How do you remember her?
Well, it was my grandma, or the great-grandma, but I never said great, yeah. So yeah, it's a very kind of image as a little boy who, she was taking me for some walks, she was teaching me, because she was a teacher, and she didn't really most of her life she couldn't really teach, because she was wife of Witold Pilecki, so I think she took some of her teaching skills to actually, for example, teach me the Russian alphabet. So I already knew it when I was, I don't know, probably 5 years old or 6, along the Polish one, I mean the Latin one. So an educator, for sure, but also a very warm person, which was, it was my grandma. so this is the...
Because I'm always struck by her as being this figure, he had to sacrifice so much for this greater idea for Poland, and he had to leave his wife behind. We can all relate to that in our daily work. We have to be away from our home, from our families, etc. But the sacrifice he made, the way he had to leave her, it's so tragic in a way that you can imagine her being really, defeated by this whole experience. And then, of course, as you've already said, everything that happened to her and her children, her family, from the horrible day that Witold Pilecki was murdered onwards.
Yeah, no, it's really something. I gave it some thought earlier on, and actually I would like to diffuse it in a kind of like Monty Python style, saying, worse things happen at sea, So this is a little bit joke, but yeah, I think these were really terrible times, and really this that she had. That actually Witold was gone, obviously. She didn't know for many years what happened to him. That's a thing too, she was just wondering if he's in Siberia somewhere or God knows where. But she was there, she had her children to bring them up, and she was really poor back then, she couldn't find any job. So I think she kind of leaned on the love side of, instead of being very angry and like with lots of grief, she just was caring and loving for her family, and I also got a piece of that, and I'm really it's really something for me.
So you don't have a direct connection other than a family connection with Witold Pilecki, but you absolutely do with the with Witold's wife,
Yeah,
Maria.
well, I remember her very well, very fond memories. And
Your babcia, your grandmother, Zofia, is very actively still involved
She is.
in commemorating her father. I had the privilege to meet her at an event last year dedicated to her father. Is it true that she's asked you to carry that memory on, you know, to take it forward going now up until you're in your 80s?
Well, about her being active, she actually was on 27th of January this year in Auschwitz with both. I'm saying this because it didn't really get to media, I think, but she was there with President Duda of Poland and the President Rivlin of Israel. They both put flowers under the statue of Witold Pilecki, and they just, you know, introduced themselves and just had a little chat with her. So it's really something, because for her it was like a mission of her life, I would say. Also for her brother, but you know, this is my grandma, so I'm closer to her, and this is really something. So yeah, she's still very active. Her health doesn't allow her always to be there when she would like to be, but yeah, in kind of way she has said a couple of times that I should bring this memory forward on, which is some kind of mission, I would say. You know, sometimes people invite me to interviews. They ask me how do I remember Witold Pilecki? Well, you know, I didn't know him, so it's hard to answer these questions. But yeah, she did say something like this.
And so you do interviews, you do events. I think you've done some school talks as well. Am I right?
Yes, I did some. Well, most of this is done by my grandma or her brother Andrzej. Because they are the children of Witold Pilecki. They knew him. This was their father that was taken from them. So you know, these emotions are still there. For me, it's a little bit, you know, further on. Yeah. So I have also a very strong bond, but it's I cannot tell you how did it look, how did he look like, or how did he speak. These kind of questions, which are very, you know, personal. I have no idea. So yeah, that's the situation.
Typically, our relationship to our parents and our grandparents, and just like our family memory, changes over time as we change as people. I just wonder, have you had moments where you've changed your idea of what Witold Pilecki means to you personally? You know, was he once, when you were a kid, a superhero? You know, the guy who achieved everything that no one else could. Have you kind of mellowed in your attitude towards him as a person? I find myself thinking about Witold Pilecki really often, and I have also changed. I've had kids, for example. I've thought about what it means to be away from them, and how Witold must have thought going into Auschwitz of his own will, which is, it's harder now for me to understand the magnitude of the bravery and the sacrifice now than it ever was, because of course that meant not seeing his children for a very, very long time.
Yeah, well, it did change a long time, because I obviously I learned about the character very early on from my family, but it was when I was, I don't know, 12, 15, maybe 20 even. It was kind of a long gone story, like, you know, one of those Polish uprisings in 19th century or something, you know, far away somewhere. Yeah, this is a hero, and you're in his family, so this is something, you know, well, nice, but it was very far away. And older I get, suddenly it seems that it's not so far away. Yeah? It's some of his decisions, or the reality of where Poland was during the war and after the war. We can still see the fruits of it. So it's, the older I am, it's getting closer, I would say. But I think it's a good thing, because, for example, for a very long time I didn't want to go to Auschwitz at all. Until I was like almost 30, I think. I went for the first time, because I thought that I'm not able to really understand this place, or you know, it would be like small touring escapade, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was really hard for me to get there mentally, and quite similar with Witold memory. If I knew more about him, of this heroic part of his life, maybe I would be a different person, you know, very full of myself in my teen years, for example. Yeah, I don't think that would be a good thing. So I'm quite glad that you know, this memory of Witold was in our family, but it wasn't like pushed into us like forcibly. Yeah? It was just like.
the story, if I can call it that, or the true story of what he did, the incredible things that he did for Poland and the world, has exploded. Not just in Poland now, because of the recent book by Jack Fairweather, who's appeared on our show more than once, actually. And I wonder, are the family getting loads of requests, and are you seeing a lot more interest now from around the world, outside of Poland?
There is lots of interest from Poland for quite like 10 years right now, and it began with the naming of the schools. But if you ask of the foreign interest, yeah, it's getting more and more intensive, I would say. Actually, you could get one person with a, I don't know, secretary to, if you would like to answer all the requests, and it's really getting intensive right now. There is a book. There will be the translation to Polish.
Yes.
Of Fairweather's book. Also, Fairweather's book is not the only book in English which is about Witold Pilecki. There was Garliński. There is Mr. Koch. So there are some other books too. But this one is obviously, it just won the Costa Award, so it's like, big
Huge
thing right
publicity. You're obviously not a spokesman for the family. You don't have a secretary working with you. But I wonder, how's the book been received by the family? How have you received the book?
I'm not official spokesman, so, but in general it was received well, I would say. Well, obviously my grandma haven't read it yet because it's in English and not translated yet. So I hope she will read it soon when the translation comes. This book is, it's not in Polish style or a Polish perspective. Yeah? It's a little different. A very big accent is put on Holocaust itself. It's a little bit, different story, looking away from States or from Great Britain than from Poland inside. So you have to take it into account. I know that Jack Fairweather is being attacked also by some of my compatriots, that he has written something about Poles and Polish Jewish things and so on. So from my point of view, I've read the book. I think I wouldn't write it like this, but I think it's quite good. It is good. It's well sourced. Every opinion, there are no opinions actually in this book, or very few. Everything is like double checked from different sources. So yeah, it was lots of work. And
yes, I think we can agree that no Pole would have ever written a book quite like that, for better or worse. It's
something different.
It really is. There was one thing we once discussed, which I'm interested in, which is the story which sometimes does the rounds, that Hollywood a long time ago had been interested in the story of Witold Pilecki, but had one condition, which was that Witold Pilecki needed to be a Jewish person rather than a Polish Catholic, as he actually was. Is it true that Hollywood demanded that from the family?
Well, it's like part true, because who do you call Hollywood? Yeah. So there was some interest for like, I don't know, 10 or more years in making a movie about Witold Pilecki. From what I know, this question wasn't directed at me, but from what I've heard, yes, there was one time such a proposal that, okay, we'll make a movie, but he has to be Jewish. But this was, I don't know, some freak, I would say, some strange person who proposed that. So it's not like, like an official statement of one of the big Hollywood producers. It was just, like a little story, and it blew up a little bit to the huge story right now. So I wouldn't really pay that much attention to such a, because there is lots of different things happening around Witold Pilecki, which are quite irritating, I would say. For example, for many times, each time, for example, Mr. Szwagrzyk was making his excavations on the cemetery.
This is from the Institute of National Remembrance.
Yes, this. And he said, for example, I hope that we will find his bones in this part of ground. And then half the media just are writing news stories that, yeah, he's been found. And, the phones are calling to my grandma, my brother, and congratulations, he's been found. And, it happened like 5 or 6 times. So it's like a cycle of stupid things being said and floating from, I don't know, from where. Sometimes also some of the media write that Witold Pilecki was Jewish because he went to Auschwitz. It's just getting a little bit flattened and simplified, and many people get very angry about it. I don't. I think it's irritating, but you just have to correct it each time and say, no, sorry, you're wrong, just let me explain it to you. And once again and once again. Yeah, it's...
Here we have this fascinating dynamic, which you've pretty much already explained, around how this is a national story, it's a national myth, it's something really important to Poland. It says so much about Polish heroism in the Second World War, and not just that, the Polish experience after the Second World War. And yet it's also a family story. At the end of the day, this is your great-grandfather, this is, Granny's dad. It's a personal story. I've noticed one thing, which is people tend to think that Witold Pilecki belongs to them. They feel like they have some sort of ownership of the story. And if I'm being honest, I sometimes feel that. I did a film about Witold Pilecki. I got very involved in the story. It did quite well, and I almost felt like I had a slight say in the story. I don't know why that weird psychological thing happened in my head, but I know it did, and I've seen the same behaviour in other people, except, of course, you guys are family, and these other people aren't. You've already kind of touched on it, but I wonder, and I kind of asked this in my first question, it's irritating. Do you sometimes feel like people don't understand the real Witold Pilecki, and this is the direct result of this weird attitude to this national hero?
I think they do, but I cannot be 100% sure that I do. Yeah, this is also my kind of imagination. And I have many sources, I have the historians, I have the family, and there is this image in my head of Witold Pilecki, what he was like. But I've never met the guy, I never spoke to him. Yeah, but to answer your question, yes, I think sometimes people just go a little bit over the edge. One thing is they try to take it for themselves. Sometimes it's political, for example, yeah? So they try to put it in some kind of nowadays party, it's political party, I mean, so it's not really a good thing.
So it's used for whatever purpose. It could be political, yeah. It could be historical, it could be some other format.
Sometimes it happens. Many people try to not do this, and I can see that also. But sometimes it's a little bit on the edge, or even behind the edge. Yeah, this is, well, you have to keep being focused and just talk to people and explain them that sometimes it's not such a good idea to get so involved that you think that because what you said, I think it's a good thing that people think that they actually know the person and they can tell the world the story or so on. But you have to know that this is not the only story. This is your story with Witold Pilecki, but there might be some others, yeah. And sometimes these are the facts. Historians take care of the facts, and we get very emotional sometimes, yeah. And this is something different. So as long as you can take it that some people may not agree with you with your vision, then it's fine, yeah. And if you get like fanatic that no, I'm the only person who will tell you how it was, and then
because there are those people, aren't there? They're kind of telling you what Witold Pilecki's story should be.
There are some people who already told us that, family has nothing to say. I mean, family. It's not like the family has the only voice to say this is good, this is bad, or something. But I would listen to the family actually. I think this is a good thing. So there are some people who would like to take him for himself, and it's not a good thing, I would say.
What do you think Witold Pilecki can teach, for example, a young American person reading this book or any of the other books and hearing about his story for the first time?
I think there are quite many things that you can learn from it. The first thing is the values, that if you don't have any strong values which are your roots, then you are really, you don't have this basis on which you build upon, and then it's easy to, go astray. This is one thing. The other thing is that you always do something you cooperate with other people. So I'm very glad that Witold's story is, popular right now in Poland and also outside of Poland. But you have to always remember that he wasn't alone. He was a great organizer. So he was connecting people, and it's like that if you take 5 people in one room, you can always find a good reason to argue. Yeah, but he put this one aim that we are trying to achieve this, and then they cooperate. They were totally different, like from different social background or from different political option, but they they were cooperating. Of course, this was the war, so there was a common enemy, and this is something also a little bit different. But I think this is the really great thing in Witold Pilecki, that he was able to make those people, to show them that they can cooperate and do some greater good. And also I think his love is like a dual thing, because he had this love for the country and the love for his family. And it's quite tragic that he had to quite a few times choose between those. And from my understanding, actually the love for the country went first, which doesn't mean he was like a bad father or anything. This is like a great story too, because he was giving the upbringing of his children through letters and very, not so many meetings with his children, but if you look at my grandma and her brother, really, it's just, they are great people. Of course, I'm from the family, so what can I say different? But yeah, they have the values, and they went through very bad times here in Poland with their head up high. Yeah, so this is really something, I would say.
I completely agree, and I think it's a story which will still have relevance in 100 years' time, because there are these essential values. There was one thing in Jack Fairweather's book which has stayed with me for a long time, which is the idea that Witold Pilecki's patriotism would seem nationalistic by today's standards. I wonder if perhaps you could just give your view on that. It stayed with me for a long time. I've thought about, okay, is he right? How would I phrase this? Was Witold Pilecki's patriotism extreme as by today's standards? Because he was certainly prepared to go through a lot for it, that's for sure. I mean, incredible levels.
So it was really real. That's the one thing, yeah? So it wasn't just for showing. I have the biggest flag of all, and look at me, I'm the patriot. It might look so from the first glance, that it was like, kind of far right for today's standards, because he was really, really like, for the nation and patriotic, but also he was like a great social organizer. He did so many things that today, rather the left side does those things, like, or even anarchistic people, yes? So they're like social gatherings, I don't want to, say everything, but lots of things with the local society in the place. This is actually quite interesting, because thanks to this, what he was doing there on the so-called Kresy, yeah? So in Krupa and Sukurcze, so this is the only, I think, reason why my family survived, because when the Red Army invaded, all the people around there, the ordinary people, even the poor people, they liked our family, and they just hid my great-grandma. Yeah, and
so this is the eastern lands of Poland, which are now lost after the end of the Second World War.
So there were some Poles, some Belarusians, and he didn't really make those, like divisions between different nations back then. So yeah, this this is getting a little bit maybe long, but generally it might look so that he was kind of nationalistic. It's hard to define the nationalist nowadays, and it's something different back then in 1920s, 30s. So yes, he was for the nation, but he also wasn't excluding anyone. So this was the big difference here. If you look on his, well, actually, I don't know if he's the only author, but there was this, just after the war, 1946 or 7, there was written this Odezwa for the people who bring up youth, and he it's just after the war. Poles actually hate Germans. They also, back then, they hate Russians, which had just took over our country. And in this text, he writes that, or he and his colleagues, they write that people should base on their faith, for example, and so on, but always remember that there are different nations, and they have also their own, interest. You have to accept that. Sometimes you can disagree, but you cannot say that we are the Poles, we are the most important nation in the world, and well, yeah. So it's not this kind of nationalistic thing, but it's getting a little bit foggy around here. So
and in its essence, it is essentially that Polish patriotism which is so strong and which Witold Pilecki so wonderfully exemplifies. Krzystof, I am so sorry that we have to finish this conversation, because I could quite happily sit here for another hour with you. So thank you very much for sharing your side of Witold's story.
My pleasure.
Well, I think it was actually my pleasure as well. So thank you very much for watching this episode. And of course, we'd recommend the episodes we've done on the story of Witold Pilecki, which I think will be coming back to over the course of the years as Heart of Poland goes on. Krzystof has been an excellent guest. You can also see our interview with Jack Fairweather and indeed our interview with Marek Ostrowski, Witold Pilecki's nephew, who was practically the last person to see him before he voluntarily gave himself up to go to Auschwitz, where he spent 900 days. An extraordinary story. So I'll see you again for another episode of Heart of Poland.